Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Money's Talks. This is a podcast by Money's Magazine and powered by AMVS Capital. My name is Ana Maria Meshkurti, and I'm the host of this podcast. And I have the amazing pleasure today to have the great Raphael Savalle, who is the CFO of Weleda. And what I really like, to be honest, about Raphael's LinkedIn is his caption, Holistic and Creative CFO, transforming companies through connection of hearts and minds and numbers. I love this caption, Raphael, because it's something so different. You're definitely not your typical CFO, I presume. And this is something that really, really connected with us. And when we've been following your journey, we really want to learn a little bit more. And we are so grateful that you are here. So thank you for coming. And as it's a tradition here, let's get it started with your journey. We want to know a little bit more. Where did you start? We know you have an engineering background. How did that journey start? And how did you end up the CFO of Weleda, such a huge company that everybody, I'm sure, knows about?
So thank you, Ana Maria. It's great to be with you. It's really a pleasure. I'm very happy. And it's true, I've had a bit of a non-traditional background, starting from engineering. As an academic background, and then indeed, even a marketing. I'm even a marketing major, and then I'm now a CFO, right? So it's sometimes people ask me, what happened, but I'm from. So my name is Raphael. I'm currently the CFO of Weleda. I'm French. You can hear that with my accent. And historically, I would say engineering in France has been the main path to leadership roles, right? So it's competitive, it's heavy in math and physics, it's quantitative. And to tell you the reality, none of my parents had any formal university level education, right? So, there was no role model in my home, right? So for them and for me as well, engineering, it could have been accounting, frankly, but engineering seemed to be the no-brainer and the most challenging or most, path if you wanted to pursue higher education studies, right, at this time. So that's how I started, I engaged myself on engineering. And then I guess, like it is the case for many young adults starting their professional life, I think it's a discovery process. And what I mean by that is when you don't know what you don't know. And I realized that, when I joined my business school, actually, there is a world that I discovered, because if you don't have role models around you, I mean, that what you know is limited to your surrounding. And in fact, I think I had like this spirit of curiosity, this spirit of exploration, of always willing to learn more or be attracted by different things. And that's what kept me going, right? And from engineering, I did a lot of trainee internship in the car industry. And I started to really like the human aspect, actually. I realized that, oh my gosh, it's all about people. A factory produces high quality, low cost. It's because of the people. It's because the teams are working well. It's because the spirit is good. It's because the trainings are good and so on. And that got me really interested into these operations, So that's how I got from doing a master in electrical engineering to doing another master in operations management. And then from there, I started to work in consulting to try to solve problems and help people, really. And that's how I, how can I say, consulting is a good segue to do an MBA. And as I wanted to continue to expand and explore, and to learn more, I went on to this. I applied for business school. I did the process, and I went to Kellogg and I got my MBA. And then initially, to tell you frankly, I wanted to do like a operations focus MBA. But then I realized, look, you know operations already, so why don't you do something different? Why don't you complement your skills? And that's why I did finance, strategy, and marketing.
Wow.
So, and I think, to tell you as well, not coming from a very, academic family, not having role models around me, I think I always had this the wish to make it up in some way, right? So to overdo it. And I was like, yeah, maybe that's not all, right? Maybe that's not all there is. Maybe it's not enough. I need to do more. I need to do more, right? And that's how I got to this point. But I think being curious, being open to opportunities has been the big driver. And then it's a long story, but to make it short, you start your professional life. Eventually, I realized that finance was a great career in terms of having a seat at the table, even if you are junior, because at the end of the day, a lot of things revolves around numbers. But I always have this, human-centric dimension, and that comes back from my time as a trainee in the factory, where I see that it's all about people, and I always kept that. And then I had like several finance roles, and I joined Weleda about 2 years ago as the CFO. Funny enough, actually, I joined as a CFO at the time. I had so finance, of course, HR, IT, legal, and I became as well interim for R&D, for example. And now I've got strategic sourcing or procurement. But I think what matters is, to be able to understand the company, and you said it, to connect the people, the heart and minds and numbers, so that we can, deliver the mission of the company. And that's what I'm trying to do with Weleda every day.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And it's so interesting. It's true that you have a lot of degrees and that you kept kind of studying and developing yourself. And that's something that we always hear people say, oh, you should develop yourself. We should always keep learning, right? Never stop that journey. So you are really, truly implemented that. Maybe a question on this, because a lot of people might also argue, is it necessary to keep studying the kind of typical school way, or shall we develop ourselves in just other ways? So given that you have all the degrees and you've done, I'm sure, other certifications and trainings, and you have trained people also, what would you say, for example, to the young people maybe that want to go into this career and are thinking, oh, should I do another master? Should I do an MBA? Or should I just keep certifying myself in different courses? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I think, it's really important to have a strong critical thinking education. It can be low. I could have done a law degree, frankly. It could be law, it could be engineering, it could be anything. But, a rigorous critical thinking education is really important. To think right, to understand what's hypothesis, to understand the logic, to understand, because in your life as a professional, what's really important is to ask the right question, because it's not about what you know, it's about what you don't know. And in fact, the more you make progress, the less you know. De facto, you open up yourself to more responsibilities. Your scope of engagement with people, external, internal, is broader. So de facto, you know less and less, right? In fact. And therefore, being able to ask the right question is critical. And to ask the right question, you need to have the right thinking. So I would say, really, getting education is important. Then I would say one of my principles that I took from one of my boss, having good boss and good coach is really important as well. One of my boss, he has a principle, and I made mine. It's learn, do, teach, right? And that's how you get to mastery. Mastery is about you learn a new skill, a new competency. It's doing it. And then when you start to conceptualize it, to internalize it, and to be able to teach it, then you really get to the level of mastery. And then you move on, right? But having this mindset is what drives your growth, because you know that you can teach something, that you have mastered those concepts, and that's really important. Learning. So for me, I had like a bit of a diverse academic background, and the way it's been useful for me, it's about building bridges. Because, and again, you want to be able to be a good collaborator, right? I mean, the world works with good relationship and with good collaboration, and it's about putting 1 + 1 and making 3. It's always the same story. And if you want to really build bridges, it's about knowing enough of the other, person, so that you can actually co-create, right? So it's not knowing everything, because you will never know everything. But if you know a bit about tech, and someone knows a lot about tech in front of you, then you will ask the right question, and then you will be able to create something together. And innovation actually always comes from mixing 2 or 3 fields together. There is little innovation that happens in a single vertical. It's about really building bridges. So this education is important to be able to allow you to build those bridges. But it's also an attitude, it's also empathy attitude about, hey, there is so many things I don't know. I want to learn, being curious, and then building together something. So education is really important. Having like a solid critical thinking education in any field, and then keeping this curiosity to build bridges. That's what I would give as a principle.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Indeed, critical thinking is so important. And I think that's one of the basis of the education system when you go to university and that higher level of education. And learn, do, teach. Very nice. Something that we should keep in mind, and like definitely.
Simple and nice.
So now it's out there for everybody to take. What we want to know a little bit more also, it's about your role as a CFO, right? So a lot of people think, what does a CFO do in their daily life? This is kind of like, at that top level. We never see the C levels in general. If you're doing just a regular job daily, then you think, what are those guys like up there and girls in the management positions? What are they doing all day? Are they just like, emailing us to do things? And the other thing is, how do you become a CFO? So let's say you are just there, but how do you make that jump? Is it like, some people will say maybe, yeah, you just apply for the job and you're lucky and you get it? Or is there some things that one can do to somehow place yourself in the minds of maybe those looking at you, that you are that CFO material? So this is 2 things that we would love to know more about.
Wow, that's a heavy topic. That's a long topic. So how you become CFO? So I would say like the tradition, not my road. My road is a bit of a winding road, but traditionally, many people go through accounting, audit. I would still recommend, to go through a Big 5, or like one of those auditors, like the big names, because you learn the foundation, of the mechanism, of the engine room, if I can say. But then beyond that, I think, it's about having a passion again for how numbers and connect with the reality, right? So how the understanding the company and understanding how that relates to the number. Then how you become a CFO. It's good to have a bit of a broad experience in all of the functional area of the finance, so being able to have a bit of an understanding of the accounting, the reporting, the business partnering. So business partnering is about working with with the operations, with the sales team, with the marketing team, with the innovation team. So being able to understand the different aspect of the company like that. It's very important to have an entrepreneurial mindset. And when I say entrepreneurial, it's about problem solving, right? Because in finance, that's where you see a lot of the challenge of the company. um, and being able to be a solution provider, and not being afraid, being very courageous, and being strategic. So that's kind of the entrepreneurial, strategic problem solver. That's what gets you, I would say, from being just a number person to being like a strategic CFO. That a CEO or like a business unit leader wants to discuss with, right? Because you don't become CFO initially, you become like a divisional CFO or like a business unit CFO or like a market, a country. And in fact, what you are is you are the best partner to the managing director or to the the business unit leader, and they want to have someone who is going to help them to see the reality and to solve problems, right? So positioning yourself as such a person, that's the way you get to the CFO track. So that's what I would say. But as I shared with my experience, many different paths can lead to CFO. To tell you frankly, I'm not an accountant, I'm an engineer. So for some time I had like a bit of a crutches on the side. I needed to really shore up my accounting or my hardcore, and I would make sure that I've got someone in my team who is good at that, so that we make sure that I get it. So it's very important, but to also recognize where you are strong. And I'm strong in strategy, I'm strong in business partnering, and where you have less strengths, just because we all have our own path. And therefore, I would, get really good people in control, compliance, tax, accounting, right? But again, the path of everyone is different and many roads. Now, what do you do as a CFO? In fact, and I think you are part of a team. You are part of a team. And the team tries to make the company move forward in the direction that we agreed. So there is a strategic part, which is what is winning for the company. So what do we want to do? Where do we want to play? How do we want to win? What's going to be winning for Weleda? And that's setting the direction, and you do that as a team. And then it's putting the cadence of the company. For me, it's very important. There are certain things that needs to be done, right? And especially in finance, it's like the monthly reporting, the annual close, the forecast, the budget. So there is a whole set of cadence events that needs to be put in place, and that gives a framework for the way the machine is going to be running, right? It's like when you lead a production, you need to do your MRP, your production planning, your staffing. So there are like some foundation that gives the framework. So that's what I do with my team. And then I think your role is also it's very important, is about the people and the staffing and the team organization, right? So it's who is going to be in the team, and what type of team spirit, collaboration do you want to inspire, right? Because obviously the CFO is not doing the finance. Your CFO is here to help. I see myself as I don't know if you are familiar with the concept of servant leader.
Yes.
So it's I just have 24 hours and 2 hands, and that's it, and many things I don't know. So what's really important is I help my team to be the best version of themselves, to be really good, to be engaged, motivated, and that themselves, they behave like that with their own team, right? And then you've got a virtuous circle of people who can take the ball, juggle with the ball, get the things forward, right? So it's it's very important to create the system from a process point of view, like I told you, the cadence, from a people point of view, the competencies, the team, the spirit, and the culture, so that this finance or legal or IT organization will perform, right? So that's and to say the last thing I would, what people don't realize, and I think I didn't realize it, and I didn't until realize it until it took me some time. The CFO, the CEO, like they get all of the problems because the truth is nothing that could be dealt with, that could be decided, that should by someone else should come to me, right? Because then it's lack of empowerment for my team. So it's not good. It's lack of delegation, or it's micromanagement, and it's not a good usage of my time. So eventually you end up with all of the problems, the problems that no one has been able to take care, that it was not easy, and that needs a resolution. And oftentimes, that's why I say you are part of a team. Oftentimes, it's also you need to resolve that with your team, with the when I say the team, the CEO, the head of operations, the head of the different business unit. So it's also about resolving complex questions, but that's what makes it fun. And therefore, it's never the same. No day is the same. And that's why it's fun as well.
This is very fun. This is the problem job. So if you guys like problems, this is a job for you. The mystery is out. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was very interesting. At least now we know very well what a CFO does, and also the different paths to get there. We know also that you have lived in the US. You have been between US, Europe. So there is a lot of, I'm sure, cultural differences, different way of working. So if you could shed a little bit of light there, and just maybe share with us an anecdote or anything that kind of highlights that way, that difference. And at the same time, we also want to then move towards your IPO process. We know that you've been also with a company that has done an IPO. And also, if you can explain very briefly for the people that don't know what an IPO is, what is that, and what's the journey a little bit about an IPO. We always see them on TV, and then we always hear, this company IPO, then that one IPO, then it's kind of very far from the regular, daily. So we would love to know a little bit about that. But we can start with the cultural differences first. That would be great.
Yeah, no, thank you. So first, I've always been very interested in going outside of my country. I love to learn languages, and I jumped on it, and I would really, give, if you can, get out of your own way. If you can get out of your comfort zone, do it. Do go abroad. Do say yes to opportunities. Really, dare, and jump into the pool, even if you don't know how to swim. Just go there. You will learn. So be an explorator. And that's, I got to study in Canada, and because I wanted to jump in this swimming pool, and then that got me as well to continue to do my MBA at Kellogg in Chicago. And then I wanted to stay there a few years, and at the end of the day, we stayed there with my family more than 12 years.
Wow.
And I most of my professional life actually was and has been in the US. And it's a great experience, because when you go outside of your own country, first, you learn something different. You learn different culture, different environment, which sometimes may be a bit like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And then little by little, you say like, oh, all of that makes sense. In fact, it's just that, we are different. I am different. In France, things are different. And therefore you learn more about yourself, and it's really a way to step back and to learn about, who you are. And in the process, in your own process of self-development and self-awareness, it's an accelerator. It does accelerate your own understanding of yourself, right? So I would encourage that. Again, I lived, in Canada. I lived a lot in the US. The US is is a fantastic country. I lived in Chicago for 6 years and New York for 6 years. I would tell you there are huge differences between the Chicago Midwest culture and the New York East Coast, culture. Just, you were asking about. So in fact, I've got more striking difference between Chicago and New York than between New York and Paris. In many ways, New York and Paris have similarities of those big cities. People are walking fast. It's a bit of the world of, it's anonymous. There are cultural differences, of course, but I would say Chicago is a Midwest area. People are, I would say very friendly, very open, a bit slower. New York is very fast-paced. It's a city that never sleeps. People are more transactional. They want to make deals. They want to get advanced. So it's funny, how those two cities are different. And if you go to California, it's another ball game, But I really enjoy that. And again, you learn from those differences, and it makes you, richer with experience. And now that I'm back in Europe, I think it's very helpful as well to be able to. And I don't say I do it perfectly, but at least you've got a certain sensitivity for cultural differences. And sometimes you step back and sometimes you say, yes, the system is different. Certain countries are more religious than others. Certain countries are more into into family than others. Certain, what's funny, for example, is I think it's Mexico and Japan have more in common than Mexico and the US, in terms of the patriarchal family organization. So, yeah, but it was very rich for me to experience those different culture, and it makes the job so much interesting. So then you had like a point on the IPO. So actually, I was part of Coty. And I joined Coty as the CFO of the operations, and Coty was in the process of moving from a private company to being listed on the stock market. And the IPO process is a long process. It's a very administrative process in some way with the SEC. You've got to fill in lots of paper and lots of forms and to explain your business, explain your risk. But it's also about telling the story of the business. So what is it that you want to do? What is your strategy? Why do you want to go onto the market? What's your growth plan? So it's also about being very clear with the strategy. And there is a whole process of which I was not directly part of, but there is a whole process of what's called roadshow, where essentially you meet investors, and the management really present this story, and you meet with investment fund essentially, and in every big cities you meet with the 3-4 key investors, and you explain, hey, we are Coty, that's our story, that's where we are coming from. We are a great team. Don't ever forget that people invest in people and brand and company, but people, the team is very important, and that's what we want to do. Because when you invest, you always invest for the future, right? When you buy a share of something, the value of the share doesn't reflect anything about the past. The value of the share reflects the future, right? So what you are selling to the investor is a future story. And from there, you have like a process that is facilitated by the investment bank to evaluate the interest of the investors, right? At the same time, you've got the valuation of the company, so it's finance work. So between the interest of the investor, the valuation of the company, the market condition, there is kind of a go or no go, right? And it's very exciting for a company to go public because it gives you like a daily, are we going to the right direction? And some people say the share price is there is kind of a dictatorship of the share price. It's like horrible to be on the spotlight like that. But
Yes.
it's also like very useful, because maybe you don't have to look at it every week or every day, but at least are we doing the right thing? And again, people tend to misjudge that it's only short term. It's not short term, because the share price is again a reflection of the value of the company expectation, I would say, for the next 10 years. So it's a cash flow weighted, it's discounted and so on, but so not all of the years are equal, but it's about the next 10 years. So are you doing the right thing in the balance of short term, long term? And that's the feedback of the market. And the market is supposed to be smart and intelligent. So it's great to have like a real-time feedback about, am I doing the right thing? For Coty, it was like a big step change. I remember we did the IPO around, I think it was 13 or $15.
Okay.
The share price, went steadily to 27. So we were doing right. And that's the time I left the company. And the share price, I think, continued up to 30. And then, you could see now the share price story. It went from 30 to now I think it's around 11. So
because of course that's the company, so the share price has to go down.
yeah, that's not what I mean, but it gives you the feedback, right? So and it's very humbling as well, right?
Yeah,
and it's very difficult because it's about beating expectation. So I'm very impressed by L'Oréal, to tell you frankly. L'Oréal is really like a success story. Very, very impressive. If you look at their share price development, they have been, growing, and they have been able to beat the expectation. And each time, you are like, oh, I think it's a great company. They're going to do great. So you put the bar very high.
Yeah.
And even better. And you're like, wow. So, but it's very interesting. I think the stock market in the context of it's giving you feedback about how you are doing. And of course, it's grounded as well in your financial results, right? That it goes hand in hand. But it was an exciting process, great experience, and yeah, it's a big step in the company.
Yeah, that must have been very cool because, like you say, it's such a long process, and then you arrive there, and then you're just kind of hoping, did we do the right thing, and is this going to work out? So it's a very, very interesting. And we've seen also many companies that thought they should have IPO'd and actually did the wrong thing, and then they go back out of the market, and then that kind of messes out the whole thing. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And I know that we are coming towards the end of our time together. So I wanted to just ask one more question. This is a personal question related to your sports association involvement in Switzerland. I know that you have a big passion for sports and you are involved in the sports association in Switzerland. If you can tell us a bit more about that, any projects you are doing there, anything that you want to share with the public, and then if you can leave us with a last final message to everyone that it's listening to you, what you want people to go away and really remember. So sometimes we say people might listen to the full podcast or just parts of it, but we really want to leave them always with a strong message at the end that if they didn't listen to anything, at least they will get something out of it.
Good. So sport association, I've been involved in sport. I've got 3 boys. So de facto, very early on, I started to be a coach for them in the US. In the US, it's very common that the parents are engaged with the sport and volunteers. And for me, volunteering is the first step to, leadership. And okay, let's volunteer. Let's do. I've never been a coach, for football. So, okay. And that's what I did in the US. And then when I came back to Europe, so close to Geneva, the parents' involvement is not expected, right? And I was a bit frustrated. But okay, so you are on the sidelines and you do the best to support, the team and the club and so on. But then there was this opportunity to be part of the steering team, if you want, or the leadership of the association. And I was asked to join, and that was like fantastic. So it's it's the one of the largest sport association in the French-speaking Switzerland side. There are like 32 football teams, for example, and it's every sport, you know, badminton, football. But in football, we've got from soccer, you know, for the American, from 5 years old to senior, so to 50 plus, right?
Wow.
Easy, in every categories. So it's really cool. For me, sport, we were talking a bit offline before about sport. You know, sport is really important. Healthy mind in a healthy body, and being able to be part of that was great. And I wanted to give back a bit. You know, my kids, my boys, they went through those football teams and coach, and I know it requires a lot of volunteering. You know, so being a volunteer for this organization was like a no-brainer for me. And what I've been involved with, you know, is to bring a bit of what I know to this association. And what I know is a bit of is digital marketing. Is you know, we rebuild the website, we put the we brought the communication to Facebook, to Instagram, to, you know, because parents now they don't work with paper. You know, I mean, we don't work with paper anymore, right? We go on Facebook, we go on Instagram, we go on WhatsApp, you know, and what's the schedule, you know? I mean, it should be on internet and on mobile. If it's not, you know, you are like, it's disorganized. So that's what we did. It was great. And now the team the club has a good followership on Instagram. It's great to see with fans and so on. And it's very active, you know. So, and beyond the sport, which is important, it's also building a community. It's, you know, the city is proud of it, you know. It's really cool. It's really fun. I would encourage everyone. And you were talking about final message, you know. But one of the, you know, when I applied to business school, one of the key question was, are you volunteering for anything? And volunteering is the first step to leadership. And I would encourage everyone to volunteer, be it in a sport association, but volunteering as well for projects inside the company. And that's when I said, say yes, you know, yes to opportunity, even if it's not paid, even if it's because it's going to be great. You're going to learn something. You're going to collaborate with new people, and it's going to open up new opportunities. So, you know, being open and back to open to learning, you know, how learning is really important for me is, I would say, would be, you know, one of my key message. Say yes to opportunity, volunteer, give your time, connect with people. That's the way you're going to find many opportunities and be able to move forward. So that would be my final message, Anna Maria.
Thank you so much, Raphel, and thanks for saying yes to this podcast. So definitely you are saying yes to opportunities. It was so nice to have you, and we hope to see your journey moving forward, and maybe to have you in future episodes. Thank you so much.
That would be great, Anna Maria.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much, Anna Maria. Have a great day.